Ladies and gents, welcome to Thompsin and Other Disappointments, brought to you by Funk27, Discontent Providers, and Global Butterflies, bringing trans and non-binary awareness to the business community. Go to globalbutterflies.com. Yo. How we doing? Sorry, I have my camera on slightly wrong there. What's going on, people? Welcome to this Friday night edition of Thompsin and Other Disappointments. It's a bit weird, isn't it? A little bit strange being in this room. It feels a little bit airy, a bit rattly to me. I apologise for the audio quality, but let's just get into this for episode 237 of Thompsin and Other Disappointments. I'm your host. Just in case you were wondering if it wasn't me or if it was just an incredibly creative title of the podcast. If it's your first time listening or watching on the live stream, welcome. Pull up a pew, pour yourself a beer just as I am to celebrate the Yuletide period that is now upon us. Season's greetings to you all. Also, doff with the cap to the veterans, the binfluencers in the house, to Mojo Sabian, to Stu. Who else have we got in the live chat? Let's have a look. Alex French, what's going on? Hopefully we'll have a few more very, very soon. I'll just start off by saying that this episode is sponsored by Sainsbury's. Fantastic food at competitive prices. And if you shop at Tesco's, you're a paedophile. You literally like to touch kids. Yes, that's right. Veteran listeners will be aware of the deal here. Like, I ask you guys to find me sponsors, right? Very kindly, I say, look, if anyone knows of any businesses out there that might be up for sponsoring a sort of up-and-coming, growing podcast that did, for a little while, touch the top 10 of the UK politics Apple Podcast charts, then, just send them my way. Send them my way. Like, help me to grow this thing with sponsors and support and so on. You guys will know that's the deal, is I ask you. However, if nobody finds me sponsors, I'm just going to read out fake adverts. Like, then you just have to sit through them anyway. So that's the deal, all right? Like this one. This episode brought to you in association with, or sponsored by, Maxine Car Cleaner. For those stubborn stains. Whether it's your car, or perhaps someone you know. Might be their car. And you just want to help out and give their car a really good clean, then you need Maxine Car Cleaner. It really is. It's top stuff. Anyway, big doff of the cap to the Patreons. Once again, I can see a little bit more chatter happening over in the live stream. If you've not listened to the podcast, but tuned in, or rather, if you have listened to the podcast on Apple and Spotify, and you haven't made the leap over to YouTube yet, then please do, because that is where it all goes on, guys. That's where all the comments are flying in, the live chat, the live streams. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's once again try to make sense of the senseless. What's going on out there? What's happening in news world? I'll give you a brief update from my side, shall I? I'm live streaming from my kitchen table, my breakfast bar, because it's Christmas, guys, and it's a tradition for me to just sit and drink alone right here to the sound of the sleigh bells. No, I'm stuck here and not in the cabin where I normally do the show from, because the missus and my son went to Disney in Paris, and then this political climate that we're in, this era that we're living through, Eurostar kicked off. The staff of the Eurostar all decided to have an impromptu strike or something, and then plus all of the storm nonsense. I don't know if you've seen all the the vicious hyperbole storm that's been going around. So anyway, yeah, between storms and the Eurostar stuff, they got stuck over there. And I can't really be out in the cabin doing this with my daughter, who's like 3, upstairs. Like I could do. I could just nip out into the cabin. I mean, it's basically a shed next door. I could go out and just, poke my head in every 15 minutes, interrupt the show to just, I'm just going to quickly nip on my door. Like, poke my head in, check every 15 minutes. But the idea of it felt a little bit the McCanns, It just felt a little bit like, I don't know if it feels all right doing that. So, I'm trying to be responsible. And I'll do it from in here instead. But she'd probably be all right upstairs. She'd probably be fine. But if she did wake up and start screaming, like while I'm out in the cabin, like I wouldn't hear that because I'm deaf as, Like on a good day, like if you and I, listeners, friends, if we're in a pub and you're telling me something important, like I'm probably not going to hear it because of all of the other like noise and clinking glasses and everyone else chatting. Like I would struggle to make sense of what you're saying. Or I just won't be listening, so I wouldn't hear it, because of that. Because it probably isn't that important, is it? It's you. So it's, But, I'm hard of hearing anyway, is what I'm saying. So being in the cabin is like, I wouldn't hear her if she woke up, and started screaming. I would struggle to hear that. But here's the really annoying thing about being a bit deaf and doing this stuff. It's like, I could be in the cabin shouting into the mic at 9 o'clock at night, and I am positive my neighbours can hear every word through my barely insulated walls of the cabin, right? I know they can hear it because they're right next to the cabin, and my girlfriend can hear it from inside our house, like through bricks, stone, breeze blocks, and insulation, and then through the cabin, like stuff, and the insulation in there. She can still hear me shouting in the cabin. So I'm positive that my neighbours can hear it, right? So everyone can hear what's going on inside the shed coming out, but I can't hear the death rattle of my youngest child above me in here, reciprocally. Does that make sense? It's not fair, this deafness thing. So anyway, here we are, live streaming from my kitchen. Before we get into like anything too newsy, I just want to say, like, normally, guys, on these Friday night shows, what I will do is I will say, if anyone's got a question in the live stream, if anyone wants to throw a question to me and my guest, just chuck it in the live chat and me and my guest will then answer your question. I thought tonight might be interesting, like, because it's Christmas, because it's the kitchen breakfast bar special, why don't we switch this around a little bit? Why don't I'll make this reciprocal. And, I'm going to ask you something, right? And you guys, you can think about it and you can pop your answers in the live chat and then we'll sort of go back through them again towards the end of the show. But here's my question for you guys to answer. What has been your favourite, or maybe that's the wrong word, it's not necessarily a favourite. What's your most prominent news story of the last year? It could be your favourite, something that you found funny. Or it could just be a prominent news story that you found like extra jarring, like it really touched you. It was a bit too close to home for you for some reason, or, or something that you thought was just disastrous and it really affected everyone and changed. Like, what has been your favourite news story of the last 12 months as we're nearing the end of the year now for this Christmas kitchen table special? So anyway, right, let's get into something newsy. I'll leave you guys to think about that and pop it in the live chat. So something I saw earlier, cheers, by the way, happy Friday. That is delicious. Something I saw earlier in the news that struck me was that the Christmas number one this year has gone to Wham, guys. It's gone to Wham. Wham, like George Michael, Wham. Last Christmas is this Christmas's number one. So is that not weird to anyone else? Is it just me? Like, does that not, like, I feel like there should be new Christmas songs by now, Like every year it's just the same 13 Christmas songs that came out in the 70s. Like, like I could tell my kids that Jesus was born in 1978 and they would believe me. You know, like they would be like, yeah, well, that's why there's just those songs then, because that was from the year that Jesus was born, right? That makes perfect sense, Dad. Yeah. But then, you know, I suppose we had the Mariah one, didn't we? That was in the 90s, and then I think the Darkness did one. But that's pretty much it, right? Like most of the years between the golden era of, you know, Slade and Paul McCartney did one, didn't he? And Shakin' Stevens and Band-Aid, you know, like most of the ones from that period, like I'm gonna say like 1990 up to now, maybe, like most of it's just winter ballads every year. All of those X Factor winners and Pop Idol winners, it's just winter ballad. Like they're not Christmas songs, right? It's like E17, Dina Carroll, who was a huge guy that won the first Pop Idol. I can't remember his name now. But most of it's just slow songs, isn't it? With a bit of ice in the video. You know, like it's supposed to be a time of celebration. It's supposed to be a time of Christmas parties and, you know, mistletoe and everyone getting excited. But every year since the 90s, like up until now, it's basically been like a pop group singing a slow ballad about how their relationship fell apart, you know, like, and then a few snowflakes in the video, and then, oh yeah, it's fine. That'd be the Christmas number one. Push it out. And you'd end up listening to it like, you know, driving on your way into work. And they'd be like, stay another, baby, if you got to go away. You know, sad songs. And you're trying to get in the Christmas mood. Be listening to it in the car, be like, wow, you know, I was looking forward to Christmas for a second there. You know, I'm sorry you got your heart broke, but you're bumming everyone out. Merry Christmas to you too. Like, I don't know, man. Some people are into them, aren't they? Some people love a good winter ballad. But I think the people who do love winter ballads, you should not invite them to your Christmas Eve party, because they would be a buzzkill, wouldn't they? You know, you're trying to drink sherry over in the cup. We're trying to have a sherry here, Brian. Lighten up. But yeah, so Wham, George Michael, Andrew Ridgeley, Wham are Christmas number one, which sort of, you know, it cements the idea, I think, that we've run out of ideas, you know? Certainly like new musical ideas. We just run out of stuff. It's sort of like, you know, whether it's music or the Tories rehashing the same ideas or rebranding their political leaders as Thatcher 2.0, or David Cameron was trying to bring back right to buy, even though he hadn't built any social houses to fuel the right to buy initiative, which was Margaret Thatcher's original thing, right? Like, it's just rehashing the same ideas, rehashing the same caricatures. Like Liz Truss, Theresa May were heralded as Thatcher 2.0s. Boris Johnson was heralded as, you know, a Churchillian wonder, and however ridiculous you think that might now be in retrospect. But, you know, it's just the same ideas, the same thing again. Like, it gets you thinking, like, it's late stage capitalism. Is it really just a societal, civilizational writer's block? You know? Like, we just run out of stuff now. Like, you've got your electric cars. Women have got the vote. It's just, yeah, this is just how it is now. You know? And yes, Wham are number one again, Aid. Bloody Wham. Do you know what I think it is, though? I think it's a TikTok thing, you know, with Wham. Because it's, I don't know how familiar all of the audience are with these apps. You know, a lot of people just listen to podcasts, don't they? They're not really buried in the worlds of social media in the same way that perhaps content creators might be. But you have, you know, TikTok, you have Snapchat, and these apps a lot of what they do is, videos, but then you put filters over yourself and you can select some music that's used in the video, right? And they're clever enough to know that they've got to keep it fresh. They've got to keep churning out all of these new filters and select different songs so you are constantly stimulated. But anyway, because it's seasonal, right, this Wham song, and because they put these, it's a new playlist, it's a new song every week that they put on there, then, the kids see this thing and they hear that song and, they get familiar with it and then they go away and stream it, or, they find it on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever and it rises up the charts. Or actually, do you know what? Like, do TikTok trends, right, and Snapchat music and stuff, like, do they themselves actually count towards the top 40 now? Because that would be weird, wouldn't it? But I wouldn't rule that out. Like, that would not surprise me at all if now we've come this far that just the music that people select to put in their shitty video on Snapchat to accompany them, like, oh, I'm a bit cheeky, look at me drinking sherry, fixing up the Christmas does that music, even the music that your friend puts on their TikTok, does that count towards a play or a stream that then contributes to the Wham rising up the charts? I reckon that could be the case now. It's been a long time since I've cared enough about what's in the top 10 to bother looking at this, but that would be weird, wouldn't it? I mean, like, not necessarily for Wham. It wouldn't be weird. It's quite beneficial for Wham, but or any other like older hits kind of, resurfacing 30 years later, like they're fucking Demolition Man. But like surely, like if TikTok filters and music overlays on Snapchat and stuff, if they count towards the top 40, right, that would mean presumably here's an example. Earlier, I did a TikTok where I was singing to myself around the house, right? About how it's been a strange year. But my testicles have grown so much, my dear. I was just having fun, like, singing around the house. Because truly I am this weird, even in real life, like off camera. When I'm not doing punk politics videos, it's non-stop. I'm a prisoner of my own insanity. There is no escape. What was I doing? Oh yeah, so I'm walking around the house. I'm doing this, just freestyling a silly little song, right? And presumably, technically, that could now become a number one, right? Like in the UK, that could technically, it's within the realms of possibility. It's technically possible that could shoot to the top of the charts, right? Which means that even the I don't know, again, how familiar any of you are with the features on TikTok, but if I record a TikTok of me talking, you can remix the audio of me talking and use it on your TikTok and mouth along with what I'm saying, right? And then that becomes like a stream to the top 10 thing. Like, it'd be wild, wouldn't it? Like, imagine if you're in the middle of bollocking your kid, Or if you're in the middle of TikToking, even like selfie cameraing yourself and you're trying to do a little like 2-camera like monologue thing, and then your toddler annoys you and interrupts it, And then imagine if you just carried on recording yourself by accident and uploaded it, but like it's you say like, oh, no, come on now. Now, for fuck's sake, leave daddy alone a bit, all right? I don't bother you when you're in the bath, do you? Do I? Like, I just leave you and your little sister in the bath alone for an hour. I just leave you alone. So can you just give me 5 minutes to do my TikTok, please? And then, you upload that. Someone could remix the audio of it. It goes viral. And it would make your shitty parenting the number one single in the country. All I'm saying is that the possibilities there are, endless. And that maybe that somebody needs to do that, and it would be a more entertaining Christmas number one than George fucking Michael. I'm just saying. But it'd be weird for your kids too, wouldn't it? But like, imagine, like, if you did upload that, like you bollocking your kid and it became the number one, the hit single. It'd be strange for your children because nobody wants an unhappy childhood, right? Or a terrible father. But on the other hand, you know, if it did go to number one, maybe the royalties mean that you don't get saddled with the same student loan debt that all of your friends do. You know, like, I'm just saying. Every cloud, maybe. It would be weird for you, is all I'm saying. Let's go for a quick gallivant through the live chat, shall we? How we doing? Looks like we've got Shaz in the live chat there as well. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. A few more people joining us now. Jeff True, good evening to you, Jeff. So let's see. What are people's favourite news stories of the year? I saw somebody say Henry Kissinger dying, which is, yeah, a bit morbid. It's a little bit... don't know. Like, I don't know how I feel about it. I dislike Henry Kissinger a lot, right? I am far from an advocate of the sort of military arrogance, murder, death. What's it called? What the Americans always subscribe to? It's like, is it Manifest Destiny? Where it's this sort of theory, this geopolitical theory that basically whatever America wants, America gets, you know, and they're off the hook for everything. I'm definitely not a subscriber of that. But I like, as much as I sort of have a dark sense of humor, I don't know if I can ever truly celebrate someone dying. But then on the flip side, I have been known to say on episodes of the podcast in my lesser moments that I honestly think the best thing for the United States now would be if all of the Trumps were wiped out in some sort of horrible car accident, some sort of fiery wreck. I think maybe that's the best route out of America's insanity right now. Oh, right. Okay. I've just noticed it was Mojo Sabian who said Henry Kissinger dying. Right. I'm just going to quickly scan down. Corey Taylor for Christmas. Corey Taylor is from the Slipknot band, right? I think that's accurate. I saw an interview with him a few weeks ago where he was saying how, like, he sounded really at peace with the fact that he had completely ruined his back from years of performing. But he was totally zen about it. He was like, you know, it's time that I just reined this in and I've had a good time and I've really enjoyed myself and rock and roll and all. Like, there was no bitterness, there was no anger or regret or anything. And it's just, you know, when you see interviews with people like that and you just think, I like this guy, you know, there's something so beautiful about people who have either gone through something or are continuing to go through something, exhibiting the dignity that I wish that I had, you know? He says, drinking alone in his Santa hat. I wish I had that dignity. Alex French says Kissinger was a tosser, to be honest. I mean, you can't argue with that, can you? You see, this is what I mean. The live stream is where the philosophical sense is spoken. It's where people who have something to say curtly and succinctly come to join what is turning out to be a veritable Christmas party. Evening to Rachel Harris. Evening to Kevin Grant. Where was I? What was I talking about a minute ago? Oh, yeah, right. So if your kids, you know, became beneficiaries of your Christmas #1 royalty, which was just a recording of you bollocking your kids. How on earth do we end up going down these tangents? I don't know. What was I talking about? I was talking about Wham, right? We've ended up on student debt because your kids would be free from student. It'd be like bittersweet, right? If they got the royalties from your bad parenting single. Speaking of student debt, guys, wow, I saw a jarring tweet earlier. Really eye-opening, you know, and I'd sort of equate it to something similar to what boomers must feel when they are finally exposed to the horrors of the housing crisis. You know, like they're aware that there's a problem. There's a problem somewhere in their distant, vague periphery. They've heard of the housing crisis. They've heard it's not good, but they don't know quite how bad it is, how life-ruining and colossally unfixable the issue is, though. And it was like that with this tweet about student debt. It was some matey. I don't know who. I should have made a note of it. I'm getting better at sort of favoriting like tweets that I think are interesting, but this one escaped me because I was on my way to the shop with the little one, and I don't know, just distracted by parenting. Anyway, so there was this matey, and he puts this tweet out, and it was what I assume was his end of year student loan statement thing, right? Again, cheers. And it said, here's what you've paid towards your student debt. And it was like 1,800 something. And then there was another section which it said interest added. And it said 3,000. So almost for every £1 that this individual has paid off of their student loan debt, they've added another £1 back on, you know? In fact, it's worse than that. It's £2 back on, isn't it? Because if it was like 1,500, they would have just replaced £1 and then added another £1 on. So £1,800 he's paid, and they've added £3,000 interest in that time. Like, how insane is that? And the guy was like, you know, if it was me, I would have been on Twitter going like, this is... But this guy, again, had the dignity I wished that I possessed. He was like, I have a feeling this isn't sustainable. It's just really, you know, a calm tweet, but illustrative. He said, I have a feeling that this isn't sustainable. And I was like, whoa, you know, like I remember having a student loan, and I remember being ferociously irresponsible with it, you know, if I could be 100% candid with you. Like, I used it to pay for like some proper, you know, stuff like textbooks, my car insurance, so I could get to and from uni. But mostly I just blew it on alcohol and having a good time, you know, like going out almost every night of the week. And do you know what? It was paid off by my late 20s. I think it peaked maybe at about £9,000, maybe. And now I see this guy's student statement, and I read other stories about it after. Like, it was a catalyst for me. It made me think, I want to go away and then see how bad this is. There's people coming out of university with like £30,000 debts, 40k, 50k, like debts that they're not even chipping away at, you know? And it's like, are we just going to pretend that this isn't a ticking time bomb, guys? Is that what we're doing? We're just like finger in ears economics. That's the strategy now, is it? Like, we're just going to loan these kids money and plow them into unresolvable debt, you know, that they can't even be bankrupted out of. Like, it's so hooky. Like, let's look at this through the lens of finance first. Just the finance industries, right? Like, here is a public service, right? University, education. And these kids want to learn a trade, effectively, right? They want to become a lawyer or a doctor or a programmer. And they're like, please can I learn this thing that everyone's really desperate for that could improve my life chances and, you know, social mobility and all that. Like, please can I learn this skill? Go to this university and learn that. Please can I do it? Well, yeah. But you're going to have to pay. Oh, well, okay, That's a bit weird because, you know, you don't really in a lot of other countries. In fact, I think if you're born in Scotland, you get it for free in Scotland. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, but you do. You definitely do have to pay now. Okay, right, but it's not outrageous, is it? I mean, it's just to help keeping the lights on in the university, in the lecture theatre, isn't it? No, actually, it's an astronomical amount of money. It will rob you of your house deposit. It will, I mean, it would actually be cheaper for you to hire a lawyer to pretend to be you as qualified you, who you then rent out to other people at a slightly reduced rate, like sub-employing a lawyer. It would be cheaper for you to do that than you actually to qualify and be a lawyer. All right, okay, well, that sounds horrendous. I mean, it's easy to pay back, though. You're going to be reasonable about paying it back. No, it's impossible to pay back. Right, okay, but if I really get in trouble, I can still declare bankruptcy, right? No. This, weirdly, this is the only loan that you can literally never escape from. It's just fucking there. It's like saddled round you for life. It's like how is that not loan sharking? Do you know what I mean? Let's just call it what it is. All right? They're lending you money that you never really wanted to borrow in the first place. They're jacking up the interest on it. And there's no fucking escape. That is a loan shark. Not an effective way to educate your population. I don't know, man. So that's through the financial lens, right? But then we get into the whole, aspiration business. Because the Conservatives are supposed to be pro-aspiration, right? Like, that's one of their pillars. It's like, we're the party of aspiration. Like, the second anyone talks about taxes on private schools, that's the first thing they wheel out, isn't it? This is a tax on aspiration. It's like, all right, if you say so. How is this not the very definition of anti-aspiration? If it shakes out like, well, what would you like to be? What was it that you wanted to be? I wanted to be a doctor. Oh, okay. So how come you're working in Lidl? Like there must be some people, like, this is the wild thing, man. Like, it's like, there must be people who've actually worked it out, like, mathematically. And if you went and did a vox pop with them, they would be like, yeah, well, my friends went to university. They qualified as doctors. And actually, they're all effectively working for about £13 an hour now. And they have the 50 grand debt. So even though I'm here working at Lidl, bizarrely, I take home more money than they do. So, I mean, it wasn't my first choice as a career, but, like, there must be people in that situation. Like, that is how bad they've let the student and NHS situation get to now, to deteriorate to now. Is that you've got people on 6 shifts a week in a supermarket on some serendipity shit, They're like, well, yeah, my calling had a funny way of finding me, but I'm glad that it did, People working in Lidl are now more likely to have money to invest in the stock market than a doctor, like, graduate lawyer guy, probably. I don't know if that's true. I just sort of made that up, but it's probably true, right? I mean, mathematically, how could it not be true? Anyway, let's have a quick look in the live chat once more. See how you guys are doing. Stu says Moan is being a victim whilst the HMRC chase benefit fraud. That's the story that irked me most. Yes, mate. Yes. I feel the same. In fact, a friend of mine, Sean from Drowned in Sound, he produces the Trawl podcast as well. He put out a good tweet the other day. He said something along the lines of, and I apologise, Sean, if you're watching, I'm going to butcher this completely, but he said something along the lines of, he said, imagine if the Tories cared as much about the 60 million that Moan took, like, that her husband took and then gave her half of, that tax money. He was like, imagine if the Tories cared as much about that missing 60 million as they do about somebody on universal credit down the end of the road, that they might be taking an extra pound, or they might not be registering their cleaning job, that they get cash in hand. Like, it's insane, isn't it? It's so illustrative as well. Like, if you read a tweet like that puts it so perfectly and succinctly, it really hammers it home. And you're right to be irked. I felt exactly the same. Like, it's one of these weird situations where your friend tweets something and it makes you fucking angry. But it also, like, normally if a friend makes you angry is not a good thing, right? But it's one of those few situations where your friend making you angry is a sort of positive. Kerry's joined the chat. Hey, Kerry, how you doing? Kevin Grant says, that sounds so hard to believe. My son's got a student loan. I will have to ask him about this before I can believe it. Well, I mean, honestly, go out and have a read about this stuff. It truly is terrifying, because if this guy's tweeting that thing one time, and this isn't the only time I've mentioned that I've been exposed to people being stuck in this rut of interest payments eclipsing the amount that they're actually paying off. I have seen it before. If there's this guy posting it and this other person that I vaguely remember posting it, that means there's probably about another 10,000 or 50,000 that haven't bothered posting it, who are in exactly the same situation. Now, if you take 50,000 people who each owe £50,000 and none of them are paying it back or cannot hope to pay it back, suddenly you have a bit of a fat liability on whatever the student loans company is now in terms of a bank. And if that bank is an offshoot of the Treasury, or the Treasury have some sort of liability there's some sort of connection. If there is a default, which obviously there will be with that number of people, we potentially, as a country's economy, could be in a real sticky situation. So it is something that needs talking about, and it's astounding to me that nobody is really ringing the alarm bell. But I always have to factor in that it is entirely possible that I have completely misunderstood something. It's that sort of, like, one of these moments where I pat myself on the back for being at least a smidgen of self-aware. Do you know what I mean? It's an affliction that doesn't seem to trouble many conservatives, I've noticed. It's like they'll just happily go on a podcast or a panel or Newsnight and clap their gums talking utter nonsense, and it never inhabits their brain for a split second that they may have misunderstood something. They're so defiantly, confidently arrogant about everything, whereas I'm just sat here going, I mean, it does sound like now he said that, like, maybe I should think it through a bit. But I'm going to say I'm 70-30 sure that this is the situation. So, anyway, let's continue, guys. Don't forget to, if you haven't commented yet and said what your most jarring or prominent news story was for this year, do share it in the chat, and I will come back to a few more towards the end of the show. I mean, it could be like there's so much stuff that's happened this year, isn't there? Like Suella Braverman getting the sack, that was a big thing because it seemed to sort of crescendo, didn't it, over a space of weeks and months. A lot of people were saying, he's got no choice, he's going to have to sack her, and then she'd just like cling on, and then the news cycle would move on, and she'd somehow survive, and then something else happened, and then I think it was a cenotaph, really, wasn't it, that did for her? It was that sort of racy, EDL, rioty kind of thing that I think within the next... I think it was a Monday morning she was gone after that. And then, yes, we've had the Baroness Moan stuff. We've had Trump's first indictment was earlier this year. We had the Russell Brand story. Like, how insane was that? Like, I'd heard these rumors about Russell Brand for at least about 3 or 4 years. So I knew something was bubbling. And I'd seen these sort of like cryptic tweets about him. And I thought, how long is it going to be? Like, it's going to happen. And now I really wish that I had, like, pre-done a podcast or pre-done a video about it. But never mind. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? What else has happened this week? The King's coronation? Penny Mordaunt with the sword? It's just been like, I feel like this year has just been a carnival of just that shittery, Matthew Perry died. There's just so much stuff has happened. I think my favourite story of this year, I'll give you my one quickly. I think my favourite story, and favourite is the right word here. I don't need to use jarring or prominent or anything. This was, without exception, my favourite news story, guys. This is the tap dancing topper tap dancing topper award for the year goes to, do you remember the Philip Schofield thing? The Philip Schofield leaving this morning story was my favourite story of the year, without question. The others aren't even close. It's up here. It's like, the others are like supporting cast members to the protagonist that is Philip Schofield. Like, that whole thing was just a perfect cocktail of media and sleaze and scandal and two people who obviously hated each other by this point, trying to play nice, you know. And I don't mean the lad that he was like plowing into the next dimension, plundering in a South Bank apartment, whom he later cut adrift. Just boned and binned is what he did. He just humped and dumped an 18-year-old when he was 50. Over 50, I think. You know, and then wondered why this younger individual wasn't emotionally mature enough to handle it. Was my read of the situation was like, oh, I don't know why he's being so weird about all this. Like, because he's 18, you idiot. But I also loved the stage managed aspects to it too. You know, I loved how him and Holly had quite clearly fallen out. You know, his lawyer was talking to This Morning and her agent, and she had some sort of issue. I don't think we know still if it was that she had found out or something had bubbled up about, you know, the 18-year-old or other younger members of staff or something. I'm not sure what it was, but it was clear that they didn't like each other any longer. But it was also reported that he was just refusing to leave. I don't know if you guys remember all of this. Like, substance it's difficult to keep hold of, isn't it? Because everything moves so quickly. And like I say, like, it's been a year where a lot has happened. But it felt like him refusing to leave and the lawyers, like, it felt like it wasn't not Anchorman. Like, was it? Like, it felt like a sort of entitled Will Ferrell kind of guy, you know, refusing to go. And then the horrible story did, you know, kind of blow up. And, you know, then he was like, actually, do you know what? A bit of time off might be nice about now. Like, and then there was like people posting memes. Like, the meme layer to it was just legendary. So many people posting so much funny shit. And, you know, it was like, I saw one where, do you remember the episode of This Morning? This went viral. It's a few years ago now. Where Philip Schofield was at the height of the sort of pedogate stuff, where all of these MPs were allegedly paedophiles, and stuff had gone on in the 1970s and 80s, and MPs and Tories and lords had gone to these little houses and done whatever with little kids, and there was a lot of hysteria to it. A lot of it actually got, I mean, look, you could say it's a conspiracy and it's a whitewash if you like, but it appears, if you are to believe the official line, that a lot of it was just hysteria. Although I think that, didn't the Home Office lose like 200 files? Like 200 very important files relating to stuff that went on. Like, whoops. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I just can't find them. They've just gone walkies. Anyway, so maybe it is a conspiracy. Maybe I'm just talking out my bum. But it was at the height of all of that. And Philip Schofield pulls out this bit of paper. And it supposedly had, it was a list of names. And all of these like Schindler's List memes came around like around then. He gets memed out quite a lot, doesn't he? And he passes this list to the then Prime Minister David Cameron. He's like, look, this is a list of alleged sex offenders. What are you going to do about this list? To David. And David Cameron was like, well, there's not really much that I can do about that list that you say are sex offenders on it. Anyway, and then it comes, bubbling up that Philip Schofield has been banging an 18-year-old. And then I saw this meme at the height of this year's scandal where it's like Philip Schofield he's like, what are you going to do about this list of sex offenders? And he hands it over to David Cameron, and David Cameron looks at it and it just says Philip Schofield on it, and he looks up and then Philip Schofield's like laughing with his hands up like that. It's ridiculous, but in the darkness we find light on this show, don't we? So yeah, I think that was my favorite story of this year. Because, do you know what? I think because a lot of what we do on this show and on YouTube and with people like Tan and Danny Price, because of so much of what we do is political, right? Westminster focused, the Tories, satire. Sometimes it's just nice to get a bit of a break from the core politics of it all, and just to get knee deep in the muck of pop culture, in the filth of totally inoffensive, family-friendly daytime ITV presenters and what they get up to once the cameras are off. Do you know what I mean? It's just fun to see it, the scandal of it. The titillating factor, maybe. I don't know. I remember doing this at the time. I remember thinking when the Schofield thing blew up, I remember thinking, at that time, if this was Russell Brand, or a 40-year-old man, copping off with an 18-year-old girl, people wouldn't really bat an eyelid, would they? And then you could imagine Schofield being like, well, hang on a second, that's not fair. I'm with this 18-year-old and he's with that 18-year-old, But it's kind of like, the weirdness of it is in the fact that he's this wholesome ITV presenter, I think that's where it comes from. It's like, you're supposed to be family-friendly, Phil. What you do? Yes, this guy over here could do it. That's because he hosts Big Brother's Little Brother at 11 o'clock at night. It's raucous. It's raunchy. He's a bit of a bad boy. And obviously, this is before Russell Brand was then outed himself as a serial sex. I mean, it's like sort of cyclical, isn't it? It's like Schofield hands the list of sex offenders over to, then he gets outed as copping off with 18-year-olds with a gross power dynamic and lying about it, and then he's pointing over at Russell Brand. Well, how come he gets away? Then Russell Brand gets blown up into being a sex offender. Is there not one TV presenter that hasn't done something horrendous to people half their age? That should be question 1 on the application form for the Channel 4 and ITV Presenters Academy or whatever, But yeah, I don't know. I also remember thinking at the time, I don't know if it was on a podcast or a TikTok or something, but I remember thinking it was just maybe there was an element of ITV just being mad twitchy, right? About anyone doing anything sexual after John Leslie and Michael Barrymore, they're like, no, you can't invite an 18-year-old intern round to your flat to suck your dick, Phil. What on earth is wrong with you? Pack it in. They do not want another Barrymore or John Leslie on their hands. But that's exactly what they got, wasn't it? So anyway, I feel like that was my favourite story. It had everything, guys. It had, friends kind of breaking up, him and Holly, and the jealousy between them. It had lies and sex. You might call it trashy TV gossip or whatever, but, the themes were Shakespearean, I think. So, anyway, I've been rabbiting on for a while now, guys. Let's go back to the live chat. Kevin Grant says, I know exactly. I wish Scotland voted for independence and rejoined the EU so I could get a dual passport. Mate, I don't want to brag. I've got an Irish passport. I don't think it's actually any good to me. Because as much as I've been lobbying hard to persuade my girlfriend to let me uproot our family and just get on a plane and move to... Like, I don't even really want to move to Ireland. Like, I would move to Ireland to get out of the UK, but I would rather go to Portugal because I'm going to have friends living over that way. And it's got a very liberal outlook and drug policy and all the rest of it. So I'm like... And the weather would be great, you know... But it's like trying to move some sort of like biblical stone up a hill, trying to persuade my girlfriend to leave the UK. I'm like, why do you want to stay? What positives are there in this country that you want to hang around for? Tell me one thing that you think is going to improve in our lives for staying in the UK in the next 5 to 10 years. It's funny. It's like, I just cannot persuade her. She's absolutely locked down. So yeah, whereas I could happily be a Rolling Stone for the rest of my life. I don't really get like that rooted down feeling. Would it be cost effective if you paid off the loan in one go, or can't you do that if you had a decent job? I honestly don't know. Richard says COP28 was an absolute flop. Yeah, I think they agreed something, didn't they? But it's like every other COP conference and every other Prime Minister's speech and every other BP press release. They all say that they're delivering on green initiatives. They all say that they've got the environment first and foremost in there. But, you know, if we look at Sunak said that his kids were committed environmentalists. He was like, I've got 2 very committed environmentalists in my daughters at home, and I absolutely want to make sure that this country, this world is in a good state to pass it on to our children. Like, he said all the right things, but then what did he actually do? When push came to shove, what did he do? Did he sign off a load of green initiatives, solar farms, wind farms, renewables? Did he regulate new homes to have the right kind of insulation and heat pumps? No, he didn't do any of it. He literally just signed off 300 oil and gas drilling licenses. So they say the right stuff. They very rarely do it, I've noticed. Blue Badger says, I'm catching up at 2 times speed. I've got a student loan. I think of it as imaginary, as it only matters if I earn more than 48 hours a week or 23 years plus minimum wage, which is less than 25k. But this is the thing, Blue Badger, is you shouldn't have, like, 25k isn't a lot of money. So I think the average UK salary now is something around 30 or 33. So that is, they're effectively pushing you into poverty for the rest of your life. You're being punished for the mere crime of wanting to go to university and, ironically, to better your situation. And they're like, nah, plebby. Get back down the poverty ladder, little oik. How dare you dream? Let's just take a couple more comments. Mojo says, I'm founding a company that supplies pitchforks and flaming torches. I believe it's probably the only growth market left. I happen to agree with you. I think there's going to be probably quite a lot of demand for those tools in the not too distant future. I'm always surprised that things haven't kicked off already. But you know, here comes my self-awareness marching band again. You know, maybe I've got it all wrong. Maybe everyone is actually really happy with how society is, and I'm just losing the plot a bit. Guys, just before I clock off for the evening, I just want to say a big thank you, really, to everyone. All of you who download the podcast when I put them out, and I pop on the portal thing that I manage it through twice a week, and I like the thing that puts it out to Spotify, and I see the numbers of people grabbing it, and more people are coming over to YouTube, which is great, and everything's growing, and it really means the world to me, because Like, honestly, I sort of started the podcast a couple of years ago as a way to keep myself sane in the pandemic and to have something that felt like a social life, like from having been marooned by fatherhood pretty much and having next to no childcare. And then the podcast kind of turned a bit more political. It started off just tech and talking rubbish and having a couple of beers and stuff, but then it got a bit more political, and the YouTube stuff kind of came from that. And anyway, like now it's going pretty well. And, I fully consider all of you guys who tune in and who jumped on the Patreon to be a part of it. And, we're very, very, very much a little team, a team of binfluencers, a little cult, if you will. So, yeah, here's to you all. Thanks very much for tuning in this year. Cheers. I'll be back doing the alternative paper reviews on YouTube sporadically over the next few days. I'm not sure when I'm going to get enough time away from the kids over the break to be able to get out and do another podcast. It may have to wait until the new year now. But hopefully not. Hopefully I'll be able to get out there one or two nights without worrying that I'm about to McCann my youngest. But yeah, anyway, that's it from me for now. Take care of yourselves, and we're out this Mother Hubbard.